Now this illustration deals with buildings covering a large area. Now usually these buildings we're talking about here are not necessarily high-rise. They're facilities with a great amount of roof area above the square footage slab of the facility. And the building is of such large capacity that feeders to sub-panels would have such a voltage drop and such a size conductors run to a sub-panel that it's not feasible to do that, because you'd have conductors so large maybe you couldn't even terminate them under conditions of use, as we'll get into when we get into chapter 8 of Stallcup's electrical design book. But right here in this section that we're looking at, 230.2, B as in boy 2, dealing with buildings covering a large area, then we could have more than one service due to the permission and approval of the authority having jurisdiction as well as the utility company. And notice this additional service panel located somewhere within the building facility under the permissive rules of 230.40 exception 1 and 230.2 B2 is permissible. Now notice the NEC loop for identification, 230.2E as an edge, you have to have a plaque. Say that this building, as an example, was so large that we had a normal service but 2 additional services. Then each service would identify the location of each service, so that if I was at the normal service, I know I have 2 other services, but I know where they're located. And I don't get getting into power energized that I'm not aware of as a maintenance person or electrician or engineer, whatever it may be. Now, if it happens to be a feeder that feeds another panel, 225.37 then talks about 2 feeders coming from a substation maybe, feeding 2 different power sources. And then, of course, if we have a fire pump in 695.4, B3C and B3D deals with the fire pump. 700.7 would deal with an emergency type additional service. But the main thing here, we're providing additional service or services for buildings covering a large area where it's just not feasible to route feeders to sub-panels and so forth. So this figure 6-4 in relation to NEC 230.2B2 covers buildings covering a large area where additional services could be added into addition to the normal service supplying the facility.